everyone, and welcome to the second episode of the Royal Dug podcast. And I'm your host, Prarthana, and I'm so glad to have you here. So, in today's episode, I'm going to be talking about men's cricket and the history of it. I've always believed this sincerely that in order to fully understand something, in this case, cricket, its impact and how it came to be, it's very important to understand its history. History is like the very foundation of something. If your history is strong, you can build on it well. But if your history is weak, the whole structure collapses. So, anyway, like I said earlier, we'll be talking about the history of men's cricket. So, the origins of cricket, men's cricket, and cricket in general, kind of hand in hand. So, I'm going to be doing this. So, the origins of cricket are mostly not clear and are kind of lost in time, but it is believed to have been created in the Saxon Norman times in what is now modern day Kent and Sussex. So there is this sort of absurd thing that I'd come across while researching this topic. Did you know that the French actually claimed to be inventors of cricket? Yeah, and apparently they play some sort of simplified version of cricket. Like I did not know that, but it was a kind of funny thing to come across. So while most of the historic evidence indicates that England is the birthplace of cricket, like most of us believe. There is a sort of piece of evidence contrasting that. So what am I saying? There is a piece of evidence contradicting that. So yeah, so there is a letter from Louis XI, who was the King of France, who mentions a game called cricket, that's spelled Criquet, being played in a French village. And this would be about 80 years before the first evidence of cricket appeared in England. So so that's like the only evidence they have, but most of the evidence suggests that it originated in cricket. What am I saying? It originated in England. So then, some of the other speculative references, like it's not quite confirmed, but then it's possible. So there is another thing from the 1300s which mentions King Edward II playing Krieg and other games. Krieg spelled Creag. So historians are kind of in two minds about this. Some of them think that Craig could be like an old spelling of cricket, while some others believe that it's probably just it means fun and games in general, not doesn't quite refer to cricket specifically. So you have that. But the first confirmed mention is in the 16th century when a witness in a court case recalled cricket being played by children 50 years earlier in Surrey. And so this took place in 1598. And so the witness recalled cricket being played 50 years before this date. So that is one, agreed upon piece of evidence. And another one is in 1598, the same year, you had this scholar John Florio, who was a linguist, poet, lexicographer, and translator. A lexicographer, for those of you who don't know, is someone who compiles a dictionary. So he compiled an Italian English dictionary which refers to a game called Cricket a Wicket, which is, agreed to be cricket. So that is another piece of evidence that indicates that okay, this is like the recorded recorded mention of cricket. So until the 17th century, cricket was mostly just played by children and was considered to be a children's game. But the first reference of adults playing cricket comes in 1611 when two men in Sussex were prosecuted for playing cricket on a Sunday instead of going to church. Christian men have it harder. So then, last year I was thinking about this topic, and this was actually a random shower thought, I would say, but then I looked up on it. So I was thinking, so bowling, right, in which you take the huge ball and bowl it towards these pins, bowling pins. So then I was thinking, the technique in which the bowling is done, and like the earlier version of bowling in like early cricket, underarm bowling and stuff. So I was thinking, it's very similar, and could there be like an ancestor sport from which it originated? So when I was looking at that, there is this sport called bowls that is played in countries like Canada and New Zealand. It's not very popular exactly, but then it is a legitimate sport. So if you consider bowls to be the ancestor sport, it would make sense, how it, adapted into these other sports like, bowling, and you have cricket. So yeah, that was just a random thought I'd had last year, and I looked it up this year. So then that was about the ball and bowling. And if you look at the bats were pretty much like hockey sticks, except they were like flatter and slightly wider. Or else they were like almost exactly like hockey sticks. So now we come to the 18th century. So cricket in the 18th century was, gaining popularity, and gambling played a major role in the growth and history of cricket. It brought in patrons who formed their own teams. This was just to like increase their chances of winning. So if there was like a cricket expert in a village or someone, they would like talk to them and form their teams according to this person's advice, and then form their own teams. So this was just to increase their chances of winning. So yeah, that was that. And so the first known game in which teams had, like the present county like names was in 1709. But it's believed to have happened even before this recorded mention. So some of the patrons included British aristocrats and businessmen like Charles Lennox, the second Duke of Richmond, and like other businessmen and aristocrats who were interested in gambling. So another factor in the rise of popularity in cricket was due to colonialism. So in the 18th century, cricket spread to different places like the Indian subcontinent, the West Indies, and North America, and other places. Basically, wherever the British went, cricket went along with them. So it arrived in Australia in 1788, almost as soon as the British arrived there. It arrived in New Zealand and South Africa in the 19th century. So in 1744, MCC was the MCC was formed before this, but they formally codified the laws of cricket. So then some of the iconic players of this period includes Thomas Brett, who is considered to be the first great fast bowler, and John Small. So then it was also in this period when first class cricket was, officially started in 1772. So now we come to the 19th century. So one interesting fact I came across while researching this topic is that apparently the development of cricket was assisted by the development of the railways. the British Railways. How so, you may ask? So, the railways aided the quicker transport of teams, spectators, and also the British Army. So, it was more organized. It was a more organized mode of transport for everyone. So this meant, people had in the case of the British Army, this meant that they had more free time. So in their free time, they would play cricket and other sports as well. But this largely contributed to the growth of cricket. So cricket became popular throughout the British Empire except for Canada. It was also in this period when the first ever international match was played between the USA and Canada at St. George's Cricket Club in New York. St. George's Cricket Club still exists from what I've seen, but they've also opened it to other sports and stuff. So during this century, there were three nations that played their inaugural tests: Australia, England, and South Africa. County cricket also saw tremendous development. So this initiative of formally organizing cricket was repeated in other countries as well. So like in Australia, you have the Sheffield Shield. In India, you have the Ranji Trophy, etc. So this was an effort to repeat the organization of cricket based on the county cricket in England. So this era produced some players who are considered some of the greatest players of all time. So you have W.G. Grace, who is considered to be the first legend of cricket. I think I'll have another episode where I just cover the legacy of W.G. Grace. You have Wilfred Jones, C.B. Fry, Ranjit Singh ji, etc. So now we come to the 20th century. During the 20th century, the ICC was founded in 1909, and back then it was known as Imperial Cricket Conference. And it had England, Australia, and South Africa as its founding members. So the purpose of Imperial Cricket Conference was just to regulate cricket among these three nations. It still did not include any of the other nations. And then you eventually had like other nations make their play their inaugural tests. So by 1926, New Zealand and West Indies became members. And in West Indies, it was still only like the white population that played cricket. It did not quite go to the rest of the population. The ICC was not really interested in inviting like the non-Commonwealth nations to play cricket. They just wanted to keep it within the Commonwealth. So then you had World War II, which disrupted cricket. Like it really stopped cricket altogether in countries like England, Australia, South Africa, and West Indies. And from what I researched, India is apparently the only country that was still able to maintain the regular schedule and just keep all the matches going. So then in 1965, ICC included the non-test playing associate members and also changed its name to International Cricket Conference. In 1989, ICC was officially renamed International Cricket Council, which it is, known as even, today's time. So then in the 1970s, you had the Oliveira affair. I'll cover that in great detail in another episode. But basically, it caused South Africa to be suspended. And so until the apartheid rule was ended in South Africa is not really allowed to come back into international cricket. So in 1991, post apartheid, South Africa was welcomed back into cricket. So another significant innovation of this period was limited overs cricket. It started in the 1960s in England and only grew in popularity. The first international match took place at the MCG, the Melbourne Cricket Ground, in 1971 after a test match had been abandoned, and it was done as an experiment and to give the players some exercise. It only continued to be favored as people grew busier and it gave them the opportunity to see the whole match and result in a day. In test cricket, that's one thing, if you even if you do go to watch the match, you only see one day's action, and you may not necessarily have the time to go for another day. Or even if you do book tickets, there's no guarantee that the match will still be there when you actually go to watch it. So that way, ODI cricket was a blessing for like the busy people, who'd not really have the time but were passionate enough to watch the game. So then, following this, ICC organized the first Men's World Cup at England in 1975. Now, you might tell me that the first World Cup was a Women's World Cup 2 years earlier. I'm aware of that, but in this episode, I'm just covering men's cricket. Then limited overs cricket increased the television coverage of cricket because, since people did not need to wait 5 days to get a result, you know, people were more interested to like watch it on TV. So this resulted in technological innovations such as graphical analysis, the presentation of stats, multiple camera angles, for the viewership, high speed photography, and other things. And in 1992, a third umpire was used to judge runouts with replays on TV and things like that for the first time in a test series between India and South Africa. Now we come to the 21st century. And I would say this has been one of the most innovative eras for cricket, the 21st century, because in less than 25 years, from 2000 to 2024, we have seen cricket change so much. Like, cricket has just really changed so much, has evolved to be such an exciting sport. I'm not saying it wasn't ever exciting, but it has changed for the better. And one of the greatest, arguably the greatest, innovations of this period is T20 cricket. The first T20 World Cup was held in 2007, and this format has encouraged the growth of cricket and, popularity as well through T20 leagues such as the IPL, BBL, etc. This also led to other innovations in the formats of cricket, such as T10, the 100, 3TC. I don't know how many of y'all remember it, but I remember seeing the three-team cricket, and I thought, okay, I mean, I don't mind watching it, but I don't know how. I don't know. I'd like to see it once more just to see how I feel about it. There have also been improvements in technology, such as you have the option to take reviews. Your DRS, you have Hawkeye, Hotspot, glowing stumps and bales and things like that. So this is the history of cricket. It goes back to maybe possibly the 1300s, and it and so it's a very old sport, has evolved so much. And maybe if certain things didn't happen, cricket might still be be played like a mix of hockey and bowling. You never know. So yeah, this was the history of men's cricket. I hope you liked today's episode. See ya.